From the north side of the San Francisco Bay to Singapore, welcome to Urban X Real Talk Fitness Radio with your host, business owner, lecturer, author, master trainer, Tiaja. With over 30 years of experience in the health and fitness industry, he will challenge the fitness between your ears. So prepare your mind, body, and soul for the revolution of self-care, the evolution of fit, with real talk about real people, real health, real fitness, and the real deal behind our present illness culture. Real talk every time, all the time. Get weekly insights on how to shift your thinking, emoting, eating, training, hydrating, goal setting, and resting for you, the everyday athlete. You can cheat your fitness, but you can't steal your health flow. It's Tuesday, 9 a.m. Let's flow.
Noted biologist and theorist E.O. Wilson once suggested that human society is evolving from a herd collective towards a hive collective. When I think of a herd, I think sheep. When I think of a hive, I think bees. Let's face it, sheep appear to be followers while bees seem to be self-directed. What would I mean by that? Well, sheep move primarily in a herd. When one moves, they all move. Bees, on the other hand, move intelligently, independently, collectively. You won't see a lot of bees lounging about waiting for their turn to build a cell. Instead, everybody's working. Everyone contributes. They do this collectively, simultaneously, and constantly. Now, although worker bees only live for approximately 6 weeks, they spend their lives performing tasks that benefit the survival of the whole colony. And that's a far cry from the conformity of the herd. Like sheep, human beings tend to conform to the politics of their pack in order to survive. It's no different than a fish conforming to the ways of the ocean in order to survive, or an eagle that soars high above all its prey, where it too must conform to its habitat in order to survive. Even young tropical plants at the bottom of a rainforest must twist and bend to conform to their way of life in order to absorb the sunlight. But make no mistake, life is about adaptation and conformity, and humans are no different. Humans conform because that is the essence of life. Still, human conformity is very different. We adapt and survive and evolve individually, but that alone doesn't guarantee our individuality. Now, at the turn of the 20th century, Americans were confronted with some of the greatest challenges this country ever faced. 2 world wars, the speed of innovation, increased technological breakthroughs in industry and in medicine, far-reaching cultural movements fueled by the politics of civil and social unrest forever changed America for better or worse. Today, the lingering question is America better or worse for all these fundamental changes? Equally compelling is the question, are Americans freer today than at the turn of the 20th century? Since freedom is never free, what is the price Americans have had to pay to attain it? Like young tropical plants in the rainforest, Americans have had to bend, twist, and conform just to absorb the sunlight. Welcome to Urban X Real Talk Fitness Radio, where we challenge the fitness between your ears. I'm your host, Tiaja, and I'm thrilled to announce today's milestone. Yes, we have made it to the proverbial mountaintop of podcasting, aka episode number 50. Now, I realize you could be doing 1,001 things or turning to another podcast, but you chose to walk this journey with me, so I thank you. You have no idea how much this means to me. I am grateful for your love and support. But I never could have imagined what topic I would be discussing on the 50th episode, but here we are. Episode 50, and I can't think of a more important topic to the mental and emotional health of Americans than this series we've been engaged in over the past several months. From day one, I decided this podcast would offer something different and unique to the health and fitness narrative. From the thousands of comments I've received, it obviously has done just that. Now, I'm proud of that. In truth, that's all I've ever wanted or could have ever hoped to achieve with this podcast. I wanted to introduce my audience to a new, fresher, broader way of looking at their own health and fitness. Now, I could show you how to get a six-pack or grow bigger biceps, but then what? What good is it if you can lift all the weight in the gym and not be able to lift the weight of the world once you leave the gym? So today on episode 50, part 16 of our series titled The War on Health, Choice, and Common Sense, I will be discussing the fourth strategy of Noam Chomsky's 10 media manipulation strategies, which is the strategy of deferring. One way to accept an unpopular decision is to present it as a painful yet necessary one, gaining public acceptance at a time for future application. Why? Because no effort is mandatory immediately. And because the public has been made to naively believe that everything will be better tomorrow and that the sacrifice required for change may be avoided altogether, more time is allowed to pass so that they can get used to the idea of change and accept it with resignation when the appropriate time comes. Thus, the illusion of individual choice is born through the media, giving the public the idea they are independent and free, even if they are nothing more than the huddled masses yearning to be free. 2018 will be just another year unless you decide today that it won't be. It is Tuesday, July 17, 2018. Let's flow. Not too long ago, I heard a story on NPR about people in China and their interest in basketball. It was really interesting to learn how they believe that basketball allowed them to express their individuality. One young person even dreamed out loud of being able to dunk and how this was their ultimate dream of freedom. Well, it got me thinking about Chinese culture and how it has contributed to their success. For it is no secret that the Chinese culture, and specifically the government, stresses conformity. So one might think that this would hinder the technological progress in China, but just the opposite is true. China has quickly become a leader in technology in the world. But conformity works, but especially for governments. In schools, this is obvious. If you're in a classroom with 30 other students, every student is expected to know that 2 + 2 = 4. Surely this is a simple example, but the academic system is usually based upon reaching a solution that someone else, your teacher, the government, etc., wants you to reach. The reason why conformity is such a great strategy is because it is based in the logic of simple arithmetic. So your job requires conformity. Your marriage requires conformity. In fact, everything you hold true and sacred, whether religion or recreation, requires some level of conformity. But conformity defers individuality. We are taught from the earliest age to be an individual, but at every stage of our lives, individuality is disciplined and maligned. Well, Tiaji, I don't think that's true. After all, isn't creative types the highest expression of individuality? Well, I would agree if I believe individuality bred creativity, but I believe just the opposite. That is, creativity breeds individuality. Creativity existed long before you and I came on the scene, so it seems a little arrogant to believe that somehow individuals gave birth to it rather than the other way around. This is perhaps the greatest delusion of the herd mentality when one is made to believe that breaking away from the herd makes you an individual. But let me ask you, what do you call a sheep that is separated from the herd? Yeah, you guessed right, a lost sheep.
So what I write about in my book is how to study the culturescape, the shared subjective realities we are living in, and identify what rules help you and what rules are really rules or bull rules. Rules that hold you back from truly living your most extraordinary life. So let me give you an example of a rule, right? So growing up in an Indian family, there's a lot of pressure to be successful. So if you have Indian friends, they'll probably say this as well, especially Indians who are immigrants like me who live outside India, that your family pushes you to be a lawyer, a doctor, or an engineer. And if you're not any of that, you're a family embarrassment. So Indian kids grow up to be lawyers, doctors, engineers, or family failures. So in my case, I loved art. I wanted to study art. I love performing art. I loved getting on stage and acting. I loved photography. But when I went to school, I viewed artists, the idea of me being an artist, as disappointing my family, as the opposite of success. So I signed up for computer engineering classes. I studied hard, went through all of these boring as hell classes that I had no interest in at the University of Michigan, so that 5 years later, I could get a job at Microsoft. And now, boom, I was it. I was working for Bill Gates. I was at Microsoft. My family, they'd saved up over $100 grand for this college education. And now I was a software guy at Microsoft. 11 weeks into Microsoft, I realized I was miserable, and I quit cold turkey. I basically got myself fired. I had no motivation for work. When I was supposed to be in the office, and I confess, and I'm so apologetic to my boss, I would just hold myself up and play Age of Empires because I was so bored with programming. My boss caught me and he fired me, and I wanted that to happen. I realized that for 5 years I was pursuing something that I had no interest in because the rules of the culturescape of being a good Indian kid said, be a software programmer. So I quit. I went, I joined a nonprofit, and that's really when my life began. I dabbled in different things from traveling around the world to meditation to art, but it was through following these passions, it was through ignoring the bullshit rules of the culturescape, but really identifying what really drove me, what made me passionate, that I was able to build the life I have today. And that's really why I'm so adamant about teaching people through my work, through my books, to question everything, to question your religion, to question your societal rules, to question the idea of a college degree. That's how I feel all of us should be living life, by questioning everything. And I don't mean being skeptical of everything, there's a difference. I mean healthy skepticism, ultimately questioning the rules of the culturescape so we can stay true to our own inner identity. So I think the idea of goal setting in the Western world is rubbish. Because here's what happened. When you ask people to set goals, even if you teach them methodologies like SMART, SMART goal setting, you are basically encouraging people to set goals based on that same culturescape with its restricting rules. So people, especially in the United States, set goals along the lines of this. Okay, we need to get good grades so I can graduate high school, so I can get into a good college, need to study hard to get a good GPA, so maybe I can go to graduate school, so maybe I can do well in my LSAT, that becomes the next goal, get into law school, the next goal, graduate from law school, get into a partnership, become a lawyer. And that's how teenagers often think about their life, these series of like ticks that they have to go through. But here's what happens. Let's actually look at that. Let's look at lawyers. 50% of lawyers in America are clinically depressed. It's not just the US. I think Australia did a similar study. So why are kids going into these professions where they end up in a job that they thought was a good goal at one point, only to find themselves absolutely miserable? And I say that with some confidence because I, at a certain point, was working in the legal industry. I was selling technology to law firms, and I would speak to lawyers on the phone and diagnose what was going on in their law firms, and it was shocking how many of them actually hated their jobs and wanted to quit. But why is it that teenagers go into these roles? Now, it's not just lawyers. We set our goals to have 2 cars and a house of a certain size, to be in a marriage. It's because these goals aren't coming from inside us. They're coming from the culturescape. And the culturescape is basically a safety net mechanism. You see, for the longest time in human history, we had to watch out for each other. There were wars, there were disease. Go back 1,000 years, there were wild animals that might kill you. So you had to follow certain rules of the culturescape to stay safe. Right. Among these were get a good education, so you are not stuck in a factory job, so that you can have a blue-collar job. It was get married, so if you're a woman, you have a man to provide for you. It was have 5 kids, because if you go back 50 years ago, infant mortality was so much higher. You had 5 kids, 2 were gonna probably pass away. But the problem is, people continue with these same rules in today's world when everything has changed. So the thing is, I don't believe in goal setting, because when you teach traditional goal setting, people are locked into the rules of the culturescape. So here's what I suggest. I suggest we ask ourselves 3 questions, and I call these the 3 most important questions. Now, the first question is this. It's what experiences do I want to have? Okay, now I'll tell you why that's important. You see, there are 2 types of goals. There are means goals and there are end goals. So people tend to chase means goals, not realizing these are very different from end goals. A means goal is do well in my LSAT, graduate from college, get that particular job, save up for retirement. But if you ask these people, why do you want that? There's always a so. Well, I wanna qualify for college, so I can do this. Right. I want to become a lawyer, so I can do this. Well, the so leads you to the end goal. Now, what are end goals? End goals are these things that really lead to the beauty of being human. It's waking up next to someone you madly love. It's holding your first child in your arms. It's having a puppy. It's seeing your business open for the first time. It's making that, getting that first customer. It's completing your first book. It's creating a work of art and having people admire it and fall in love with it. These are end goals. So what I advocate is, and the 3 most important question is, forget the means goals. Means goals are goals designed by the culturescape. Instead, go straight to the end goals. Now, the first question you ask yourself to identify your end goals is, what experiences do I want to have in life? And this is where you start writing down your experiences. And when I do this exercise, I ask people to take out a piece of paper, draw 3 columns. So if you're watching, do that right now. Take out a piece of paper, 3 columns. Top of the first column, you're going to write down experiences, right? And ask yourself, what experiences do I want to have? Who do I want to wake up with? What type of house do I want to live in? What countries do I want to visit? Where do I want to travel to? What adventures do I want to have? Whether it's climbing Mount Kinabalu or hiking the Andes. What type of family life do I want? What dog do I want? The beautiful thing about experiences is often they don't require that much money. It's crazy. We associate money with happiness, that often the most beautiful experiences in life require no money. Almost any human being today can fall in love, can make a baby. These are some of the most profound experiences I've had. So the first thing is you make a list of your experiences. Now the second thing is you ask yourself this question. For me to be the man or woman who has all of these experiences, how do I have to grow? And here we come to the second list. See, I believe we are souls having a human experience here on planet Earth. But these souls are not just here to explore all of these wonderful things about being human. I believe as souls, as human beings, we crave growth. Human beings are growth-driven machines. And so you make that second list. And that second list is, how do I want to grow? How can I learn to be a better father, a better spouse, a better lover? What languages do you want to learn? Do you want to learn a musical instrument? Do you want to learn to write? Do you want to learn to play a particular sport or learn a particular skill? What many people don't realize about the world is that growth is a goal in itself. It's one of the key things that drive us forward as human beings, but very few people write down growth as goals. It's because our education system, which tries to teach us to grow through forced learning, makes many people dread learning. So growth becomes that second list. Now you have 2 lists, your experiences and your growth. Now you ask yourself the third question, and the third question is this: to be that man or woman who has all of these experiences, to be that man or woman who has grown in such a way, how can I give back to the world? And there's a very important reason for that question. The Dalai Lama said, if you want to be happy, make other people happy. And I believe that when you do these 3 most important questions, that third category is what truly leads to fulfillment. It's when you can take your growth, you can take your experiences and contribute to fellow souls, contribute to the human race. You've learned entrepreneurship, great, mentor someone, mentor a kid who wants to get there. You have the ability to sing, figure out how to use it to deliver, beautiful music, to inspire people. So your list of contributions becomes your steps for you to give back to the world, because that takes you beyond pure happiness into fulfillment. Now, when you have this list, experiences, growth, and contribution, this becomes your goal list. Everything else is just a means goal. Now, when I started creating this, I found that it allowed me to rewire my brain, to shortcut and bypass so many rules, to go straight to these final items, to go straight to ways I could contribute, ways I could grow, ways I could have these beautiful experiences. And often these were unconventional paths. Like when I started my company, I didn't work with any investors or VCs. I decided to start my own university, which is happening in Barcelona, but it all came because when you have done the 3 most important questions, you get to short circuit the rules of the culturescape and figure out shorter paths towards true human fulfillment.
Now here are my 2 cents, and feel free to keep the change. Wolves like to move in herds. When the herd mentality is in place, the weak become prey. Fear so dominates the herd that the young and the old alike are left behind. Their whole lives are spent running with the herd or working for the hive itself. In theory, as humans supposedly evolve to the hive mentality, no member is left out. No member's well-being is more important than another's. Each and every member of the hive has a well-apportioned and fulfilling dose of energy and resources available on the planet. But we know just the opposite is true. This is how you get people to defer their individuality for the group. Today we live in a climate where free speech is on trial. Anyone who says anything that the group deems inappropriate is marked for ostracism and is shunned by the collective. So every thought you think is your own belongs to the group. Try saying what you really feel on social media and see what happens. Try speaking your mind at work and see what happens. I dare you to try expressing yourself honestly with your spouse or family and see what happens. Now think of what you're attracting to yourself universally. And once you begin to defer who you are for the sake of getting along, it doesn't just stop you from expressing who you are, it prevents you from growing, even knowing who you are. The deferred strategy is to connect you with the submatrix of the herd or hive mentality so that you consult your followers and comments and likes on social media before speaking your heart or standing up for what you believe. Have you ever seen a group of starlings moving across a field? It's an amazing sight. The entire swarm creates a matrix of movement known as a murmuration, whereby thousands of birds look like a moving, synchronized electromagnetic field of energy, almost like the aurora borealis. Yet, as amazing as the starling's synchronized flight is, it pales by comparison to a locust swarm. Now, locusts move in a synchronized pattern in the billions. Now, the science behind the locust swarm is fascinating. According to Ian Kuzin, a collective behavior biologist from Princeton University, within each swarm, millions of what he calls orders are formed. Now, the job of the orders is to bite the hind legs of any individual who isn't doing what the rest of the group is doing, even cannibalizing those individuals who don't comply. When I hear the vitriol being spewed on social media or witness young people violently protesting the right for someone of dissenting opinion to be seen or heard on their college campuses, then I know without a doubt that if human beings have evolved from the herd to the hive, then the hive this society has created is not like the bees at all, where they spend their lives performing tasks that benefit the survival of the whole colony. No, this hive is more like the locusts, where the head or the body or of any individual that does not comply is bitten, killed, or eaten alive. Dear friends, I wish above all things that you be in health and that you prosper just as your soul prospers. You've been listening to Urban X Real Talk Fitness Radio with your host, Tiaja. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast by downloading our app at tiajae.podbean.com. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out our website at www.urbanxfitness.net. There you will find all our awesome catalog of natural nutritional products, designer sportswear, as well as our digital workout books with embedded how-to videos for home and gym use. Also check out any one of our popular keto, pescatarian, vegan, or our most popular custom 4.5 menus, which are available also through our online stores, the Urban Experience Fit, stores 1 and 2. Now, last thing, please feel free to share our podcast with friends, family, and coworkers. I thank you so much for taking this journey with me. And until next week, as always, walk in health and peace.